Hi folks, I thought I'd make a video on the subject of whether we have free will. It's a question that has been asked on the channel a number of times over the years, but it's one that I haven't really covered, other than to say that I don't think it matters very much because we feel like we have free will whether we do or we don't, so it doesn't make any practical difference to our life. But I thought I would go into a bit more detail on what I really think. And really, I've only sort of fleshed this out in my own mind recently. So anyway, here's what I think. I think we do have free will. But I can kind of understand why some people say that we don't, because they attempt to define consciousness in terms of neurological activity. The brain does what the brain does, and that seems to be what results in our decision making. So I can decide, do I want to pick up this phone that's on the desk or not? Oh, I picked it up. Did I have an actual choice about that? Because we could look at the brain, and the brain does a certain thing that results in that choice happening. So, neurological activity. So it's kind of like saying consciousness is here piloting the body, piloting the brain, but it thinks it's a pilot, but it's really a passenger. It's a passenger that undergoes an illusion that it's in control. That's kind of a very weird way of modeling consciousness, because if we look at evolution, evolution is very tidy in the sense that there's nothing superfluous about us. Well, you could argue about the appendix, I suppose, but you know, everything serves a function towards survival. So if consciousness is all just neurological activity and there's no actual free will, why did the body evolve consciousness in the first place? I mean, why isn't there just a body motivated by neurological activity with just no pilot? No pilot, no passenger, no nothing. Just the neurons do what they do. They motivate the body to action. And there's nothing here but stuff. Nothing here but the fake appearance of consciousness. Because if it can do it without the pilot, if the pilot's not actually doing anything, why is the pilot there? Do you get what I'm saying? I'm using the word pilot and I'm not defining what I mean by that. I'm just talking about subjective experience. Subjective experience, that great mystery that's going on here. It's happening. So the neurological model says it doesn't serve a function because it's just a passenger. Why is it there then? You see? So that's my first bit of data on the question. The second bit is a bit more esoteric, and it's going to be a hard sell for some of you. But if you've been on my channel for a long time, you may remember that I did some experiments in the early days into psychokinesis. They were successful, small but successful. So I am a believer in psychic phenomena through direct experience. And I'd be pretty confident that some form of extrasensory perception is also real. I'm not talking about anything as grand as mind reading. More the idea that you can have feelings about things or sort of shared thoughts between people. This is something I experienced with somebody that I'm close to. I mean, I may be misinterpreting this, but sometimes it seems that when I'm with this person, I'll say something and he'll be thinking it. Or he'll say something and I'll be thinking it before he says it. You know, it's as if the thought is floating between us and one of us happens to catch it and vocalize something about it. It's strange. And people will also report more dramatic connections, such as a terrible feeling of despair or dread that has no explanation until you suddenly get a phone call that says, that your husband or wife or child has died in a car crash or something like that, and you suddenly understand why you had that feeling. It's a feeling that transcends mundane explanation in terms of consciousness being explained by neurons, doesn't it? So if extrasensory perception is real, and I think it is, if psychokinesis is real, and I know it is, and by that I mean there is an extension to the mind that extends beyond the body, where you can affect your local environment in a very minor but very real way. How do you explain that in terms of neurons? You can't, and yet it occurs in nature. So, consciousness remains a phenomenal mystery, something that is probably impenetrable, resistant to mundane explanation. And you can't just reduce it to a passenger. So I think the neurological model of free will, it doesn't wash. It really doesn't. Someone also tried to use the line, "There's no free will in the past," which is true. And I had to think about that one for a while. But then the problem with that is there's no past. The past is the previous shape of the present. There's only the present. And the present is where all spontaneity occurs. So you can't point to a recording and say there's no free will in the recording. You know, that's what the past is essentially. It's kind of like saying I could put in a Blade Runner DVD into the machine and the ending would be different this time. Of course not. But right now in the present, anything's possible. Why? Precisely because we have free will. Alright folks, that'll do for now. I'm going to get into the habit of saying at the tail end of my videos, I'm on Patreon, link down below. Check it out if you're interested. There are a few perks for joining me on Patreon, such as access to unlisted videos and a free copy of my book Reality Check in the mail. Okay folks, take care. Bye.